death would wear a familiar face, but not yours. You're a kite dancing in a hurricane, Mr. Bond.
Welcome, James. It's been a long time. And finally, here we are.
SPECTRE is directed by Sam Mendes. This is the latest film in the James Bond franchise. Once again, we get Daniel Craig returning as 007. We also get Léa Seydoux, Ralph Fiennes, Christoph Waltz, and Dave Bautista. This film picks up shortly after Skyfall ended. James Bond receives a cryptic message that sends him on the trail to uncover this criminal organization called SPECTRE. But things become even more personal very quickly when he realizes that somehow this syndicate has some kind of connection to his past. Before I get into my thoughts on this film, I want you to know exactly where I'm coming from because I grew up with James Bond. Sean Connery and Roger Moore films, I watched all of them as a kid, and I've always loved 007. No spy has ever come close to him in my opinion. I've watched all 24 films, most of them multiple times, and I've read several of the Ian Fleming novels. So believe me when I tell you, I am a huge fan of this franchise. I also think that Daniel Craig is the only incarnation of Bond to ever rival the original Sean Connery films. Casino Royale and Skyfall are two of my favorite action movies, period. And particularly I think that Skyfall was the perfect blend of the newer, grittier Bond that we got in Casino Royale with the older espionage suave Bond that was prevalent in the 60s and the 70s films. And I think that in most ways, SPECTRE continues what Skyfall started really well. Whereas in the first film, he was much more gritty and didn't have a lot of the tropes from the old school James Bond movies. In this movie, I felt like everything has sort of come full circle. And yes, more than anything else in this film, the action is fantastic. There's some really cool and creative set pieces that are visually stunning and very intense. The movie freaking starts with James Bond doing a fist fight on a helicopter that's doing spins and flips in the air. I mean, it's great, shove popcorn in your face, action movie fun. And believe me, there is plenty of nostalgia for big Bond fans in this movie. One of my favorite aspects that they brought back was the henchman, and you know what I'm talking about. The big oaf of a man that always works for the villain, like Grant in From Russia with Love, or Oddjob, or Jaws. They don't have too many lines. They're not the smartest man in the room by any stretch of the imagination. They're mostly just trying to beat the crap out of Bond. And I thought Dave Bautista was just right for this movie. He did exactly what he was trying to do. He was perfect casting, and I don't think he had any lines in the movie. I might be wrong on that, but it was fine because he didn't really need them. I really can't say anything bad about any of the casting in this film. Both new and old casting, everybody seemed to fit their roles and just did a really good job. I did have some issues with this film, however, so if you're going in expecting something on the level of Skyfall, or maybe even above it, you might want to prepare yourself because while SPECTRE does have a little more action than Skyfall did, it suffers from some weaker story elements. Most of the movie is James Bond finding clues that are leading him up to SPECTRE. And there's some great action sequences along the way, but when the action scenes end, it slows down a lot. There's a significant change in pace that is felt even more so with the 2.5-hour runtime. And it's not that there's not things happening in the movie in these moments, but it's just that some of these story elements aren't that interesting. There just weren't enough stakes for me in this movie, and there's some scenes in the film that feel very forced. The few moments that we see Monica Bellucci's character, I felt that the movie sort of went off the rail for a minute. It just felt really unbelievable. And then Léa Seydoux's character, they try and build her up in the movie, but the relationship that develops between her and James Bond felt very forced. Whereas in Casino Royale, the relationship with Vesper felt earned. In this movie, I just really didn't buy it. And although I think Dave Bautista was a good henchman in the movie, we don't get quite enough of our main villain played by Christoph Waltz. And I love Christoph Waltz. I think he was perfect casting for the villain in this movie. But he's really only in 3 scenes, and the scenes that we do get him, he doesn't do all that much. I felt like they were really trying to make this a more personal mission for Bond, and in some ways it really is, but it doesn't translate as well as I think they wanted it to. And I have to attribute this mostly to the writing. I don't think the script was quite there yet. They had a great outline for sure, but I felt like it needed a couple more revisions, and it just felt a little too rushed for me. They focused too much on nostalgia, which I still enjoyed, but it made the pacing and the tone of the movie kind of suffer, keeping it from reaching that Skyfall potential. So I'm gonna give Spectre an 8 out of 10. Despite the flaws that I mentioned, this is still a really good film. I really enjoyed it, and it's a must-see for any Bond fan out there. There's some really great action sequences, some cool callbacks to original movies, and some subtle moments that tie in to the franchise really well and make for a really fun time at the movies. Once again, thank you so much for watching, guys. You know I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed my video, then please give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below with your thoughts. If you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe. There's some great movies coming out in November and December, so stay tuned for my reviews. But until next time, keep going to the theater. Keep watching those movies. I'll see you.